On today's show, I'll preview the Blackhawks matchup with the Flames. I'll also discuss the Panthers' early season struggles and which Blackhawks prospects could play in this year's WJC.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. Do me a quick favor if you could. Please go and show some support to Locked On Blackhawks on Instagram, as that's the latest account that I'm trying to boost up here and grow. And I also have to let you know that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and download the FanDuel app now, or you can check out FanDuel.com to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right, happy game day, Blackhawks fans, and happy Friday. Hope everyone's start to their weekend is going wonderfully. The Hawks play game number 5 of their current 6-game road trip, which will finally come to an end on Sunday in Detroit. But first, later on this evening, they will have a matchup at Scotiabank Saddledome when they take on the Calgary Flames, as they look for a second consecutive victory and have a chance to move their record to 2-2-1 during the current road trip, which would be absolutely massive. And of course, they're coming off a big 5-2 win over the Vancouver Canucks in their last time out on Wednesday. That finally put an end to their 11-game losing streak against them, with 5 goals coming in the third period. First win for the Hawks against the Canucks since November 21st, 2021. And it was Tyler Bertuzzi who led the way with a hat trick in the third period. And he actually became just the 6th player in NHL history to record a hat trick with 3 separate Original 6 franchises, which I thought was pretty cool. And then Spencer Knight had arguably his best start as a member of the Blackhawks, making 43 saves, which is the second most of his career in a single game. And according to Money Puck, Blackhawks fans, as of this morning, Spencer Knight is number 1 in the NHL in goals saved above expected. Truly has been performing at a Vezina level candidate in his first full season as a member of the Blackhawks. So yeah, the Hawks got a chance to keep it rolling here tonight in Calgary, a team in which they've earned a point against in 13 of the last 18 meetings. And it has not been a pretty start to this new season for Calgary. They have picked up 2 wins in a row here, defeating the Philadelphia Flyers and then the Columbus Blue Jackets in their last appearance. So got to be a little wary of that if you're the Hawks, that maybe this Flames team is finally starting to find their footing a little bit here. But they are still, even with those 2 wins, dead last in the NHL standings with a 4-9-2 record through their opening 15 games. They're also 31st in the league in goals scored per game, 29th on the power play, 21st in goals against, 28th at the faceoff dot. So Dustin Wolf has had a lot of resurgence here in his 3rd NHL campaign. So yeah, really has not been a good start for the Flames in any way you want to shake it up. Big opportunity for the Blackhawks to keep it rolling and go and pick up a 2nd consecutive win on this road trip tonight at Scotiabank Saddledome. As far as the Blackhawks lineup goes, as most of you I'm sure are aware of, I am recording today's episode and posting it well before the Blackhawks morning skate. I sadly got to go into work for my day job today, so not able to pump out the episodes like I usually do following the morning skate and when it wraps up. However, I think it's pretty clear cut in terms of what the Hawks lineup is going to be since they're coming off of a win in their last time out in Vancouver. Expect Ryan Green, Connor Bedard, and Andre Burakovsky once again to serve as the top line. And boy, oh boy, Blackhawks fans, Connor Bedard, wow, has been such a treat to watch here in his 3rd NHL season. Of course, extended his point streak to 6 games on Wednesday night in Vancouver in his hometown to help pick up his first win against his hometown team. It was also the first goal that he ever scored in Vancouver, first career goal against the Canucks, actually, whether it was home or away, regardless. In a fitting way, I think, to seal that first victory in his young career against the Canucks. But the baseline, I keep talking about it, Blackhawks fans, The way Bedard has stepped up his game and made improvements in every single department, and how he's showing that on a nightly basis right now, the consistency that we're seeing out of number 98 while he's still 20 years old, 18 points now in his first 14 contests. It has been so much fun to watch, and he was once again a threat seemingly every time he stepped on the ice, especially in that first period on Wednesday night at Rogers Arena. So hopefully Bedard will be able to keep that up here tonight. He has, I believe, 5 career points in 4 career matchups, or maybe it's 5 career matchups against the Calgary Flames. So it's fared pretty well against them in his young career as well. Andre Burakovsky was held off the stat sheet. That put an end to his 4-game point streak and 3-game goal streak on Wednesday. But I did still think he had a pretty effective game and moved the puck well in the offensive zone with Bedard. I also mentioned on the recap episode that I dropped yesterday, I thought Burakovsky used his speed really effectively on the back check and made some really strong defensive plays in that contest. So he keeps up his strong start to his first season with the Blackhawks as well. He and Bedard seem to get more comfortable along with each other with each passing game. And then Ryan Green continues to look the part on the top line, which I think has been really impressive for a guy who was mostly their 3rd or 4th line center to start off his first full NHL season. And the way that he's handled that adjustment going up to the top line and having to play a little bit more of an offensive game, I've really been impressed with how he's handled that situation. The second line for the Blackhawks, Teuvo Teravainen, Frankie Nazar, Tyler Bertuzzi. Don't think we're going to see any changes to that trio, even though while Bertuzzi cashed in for a hat trick in Vancouver, Frank Nazar once again went pointless. I believe that's now 5 of the last 6 games Frankie has failed to record a point, so hopefully he'll be able to find the stat sheet once again here this evening. Teuvo Teravainen's been a little quiet here as of late. And I do want to correct myself from something I misspoke about on yesterday's show, which I apologize for. The Blackhawks changed up their top power play unit on Wednesday. Artem Levshinov replaced Sam Rinzel. I mentioned that Teuvo Teravainen replaced Frankie Nazar. It was actually Teuvo in the bumper role on the Blackhawks top power play, not Andre Burakovsky, like I said on yesterday's show. I apologize for that, but I do still feel like because Teravainen is a lefty, the point is the same. If you want to move Bedard back over to the left circle, it's just tough to have Frankie Nazar in that bumper spot because those are 2 right-handed shots. It doesn't allow Bedard to have a one-time opportunity right there in the slot, and having a lefty like Teuvo Teravainen, or even if it was Andre Burakovsky, that now gives Bedard as many threatening scoring weapons and threats as possible when he has the puck on the power play. But would love to see Teuvo kind of raise his game here as he's been kind of quiet as of late, along with Frankie Nazar after both of them got off to red hot starts together. Oliver Moore, Ryan Donato, Ilya Mikheyev, think we're going to see that as the third line once again. They were really effective on Wednesday in Vancouver. Mikheyev wound up tallying the game-winning goal against his former team, which I'm sure had to be a little bit sweet for him. Ryan Donato tallied 2 assists, which I thought was key. I mentioned the depth scoring being one of my keys to victory in that matchup. So for Donato to get back on the stat sheet with a couple assists after being scoreless in 4 of his past 5 outings, I thought was really big. And then Oliver Moore continues to look the part, continues to look like an NHLer, picked up a secondary assist on Mikheyev's GWG, continues to do some real good work in the dirty areas, in front of the net, down below, around the net. For a guy who's only 6 foot and right around 185, 190 pounds, I continue to be impressed with his aggressiveness and his assertiveness and his desire to go to the dirty areas, in addition to how he uses his wheels to absolutely hound opposing puck carriers and do a lot of good work on the defensive side of things. And then I think that leaves Colton Dach and Nick Foligno to be there as the 4th line, with Blashill likely to go with only 11 forwards in the lineup once again. Dach has definitely taken a little bit of a back seat here in these last couple of contests. He's only playing, 10, 11 minutes per game just because the Blackhawks are double shifting Bedard and putting him with, I think, some more offensive threats than what Colton Dach, he didn't really do all that much offensively when he was up on the top line earlier. I think he's still going to be in the lineup tonight. I don't foresee Blashill making any changes, but I do wonder in one of these next games, maybe even to close out the road trip, do they get Sam Lafferty back in there just to get him a game in the lineup, as I believe he's now been scratched in 9 of the last 10 or something like that. Whereas Colton Dach, with a a role that's receding a little bit here. I do wonder if they could just be giving him a reset and give him a day off while also giving Lafferty an opportunity. Don't think it's going to happen tonight, though, up in Calgary. I think we're going to see the lineup the exact same, which means obviously the same 7 defensemen as it's been for every game but 2 so far this year. 7 blue liners in the lineup for Blashill, Vlasic, and Rinzel, who, as I talked about on last show, for Rinzel, he's played under 18 minutes in 4 of the last 5 games, and I think Blashill is recognizing that he's fighting the puck right now. He's struggling a little bit, and maybe isn't as comfortable handling 20-plus minutes per game as we all kind of expected going into his first NHL season, which, yes, is a little bit disappointing just because Rinzel looked so good last year in his 9-game stint after signing his ELC coming out of Minnesota in college. But the kid is still only, I think he's 20 years old, maybe 21. I forget off the top of my head right here, right now. Regardless, still very early in his development as well. And these types of hiccups are going to happen for especially a more so offensive-minded defenseman in the defensive zone. Wyatt Kaiser and Artem Levshinov, I think that's going to be the second pairing. I mentioned Artie, I think, got back to his roller coaster kind of ways on Wednesday in Vancouver, made a poor decision that ended up breaking up Spencer Knight's shutout bid. Would like him to get back to his sturdier defensive structure that he was going through over the past couple of weeks. And then Wyatt Kaiser continues to just be an absolute beauty for the Blackhawks with his skating ability, his two-way play. Would love for him to start chipping in a little bit more on the offensive side of things, though. And then the two vets, Matt Grzelcyk and Connor Murphy, might have had their best game together in Vancouver on Wednesday. Both of them picked up their 3rd assist of the season. They had the 2 highest expected goals for percentage for the Blackhawks, and they just continue to not really make any huge blunders, any critical mistakes, and I think that's been really key for the Blackhawks defensively. And then Louis Crevier, who picked up another assist in Vancouver and was the lone Blackhawks defenseman with a +2 rating, continues to do a lot of good things as this team's 7th defenseman. I expect that it's going to be Spencer Knight in between the pipes once again for Chicago. I expect Blashill to continue to play the hot hand, and it would be really, really fascinating to see him go head-to-head with Dustin Wolf, who, of course, is one of the finer young goaltenders in the NHL as well. Signed a long-term extension with Calgary this summer, whereas Spencer Knight signed a medium-term deal with the Blackhawks that I think looks like one heck of a bargain with the way he's performed so far this year, but would be a very interesting goaltender matchup if it is Knight and Dustin Wolf for these two respective teams. As far as my 3 keys to victory for the Blackhawks tonight, number 1 is for the big guns to stay hot. Obviously, I'm talking about Connor Bedard, 6-game point streak. Let's go and extend that to 7, maybe pick up 20 points with a multi-point performance here in Calgary. And then the second line, Tyler Bertuzzi, let's keep it going. And let's also get Frankie Nazar and Teuvo Teravainen back on the stat sheet. If the Blackhawks can get goals from their 1-2 punch, their top 2 forward lines against a Flames team that's really struggled in terms of offensive output this year, I think that'll go a long way to getting the Blackhawks their 2nd consecutive victory. My second key to victory is to have a gosh darn good second period. They were better in the middle frame on Monday in Seattle, but still, in general, over their last 9 games, since the beatdown over the Blues, where they outscored them 3-0 in the second, they've been outscored 15-3 in the second period alone, and they were very fortunate to not get outscored in the second on Wednesday against the Canucks. That was actually just the 2nd time over their last 9 games, and in which they've been level in the second period. They haven't even won a second period battle over their last 9 games. So got to change that here tonight. And just altogether, if they do that, I think they have a real good chance of putting together a full 60-minute effort, because the starts and the finishes haven't been terrible, but the second period, for whatever reason, continues to give them issues. And then my third and final key to victory is do not make your goaltender work as much, which I think with the Flames offense comparatively to Vancouver's, I would hope the Blackhawks don't give up 45 shots here again tonight. But I think if they limit the Flames to under 30, make it a little bit easier for Spencer Knight, and also limit the amount of chances that the Flames get off of the rush, as that was a problem for the Blackhawks in Vancouver. I really like their chances of beating this Flames team, putting an end to their current 2-game losing skid, and for the Blackhawks to even up that record going into Detroit to close out the road trip. All right, there is everything to know before the puck drops at Scotiabank Saddledome at 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. Fortunately, not a 9 p.m. CTer, which wouldn't have even been the worst case in the world, at least for me personally, because it is a Friday compared to the Wednesday and Monday 9 p.m. puck drops. But 8 p.m. CT tonight on CHSN. Coming up in just a minute, Blackhawks fans, stick with me as I'll talk through the Florida Panthers' shaky start to the new season. But first, I got to talk to you all real quick about one of today's sponsors, which is Rougiette. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything, and we've all heard them before. It's just stress, or I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed ED treatments designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. And the process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by a real doctor. So go and visit Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL in all caps, and you'll also get 15% off on your first order. Again, that's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL, and don't forget to use our code LockedOnNHL in all caps so they know exactly who sent you. Rougiette. Stop making excuses and start making moves. As always, just a reminder to please go smash that like button, subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well if you like what you're watching here today or on a daily basis. Thank you, as always, Blackhawks fans, for all of your constant support. Segment 2 on today's show, the Florida Panthers did come away with a win last night over the Los Angeles Kings on the road. And now some of you may be wondering why I'm talking about the Panthers here today, but it's because the Blackhawks, of course, have their unprotected 2026 first-round selection as part of the Spencer Knight trade, which continues to look like a smashing success for general manager Kyle Davidson, as Jones, of course, was being a little bit of a locker room issue at the end of his Blackhawks tenure, clearly wanted out, which I do understand, by the way. Like, Seth did not sign up for the rebuild here. Would I probably have had that mentality if, I was one of the veterans in the Hawks locker room where it's kind of crucial to set the tone for the new young guys? No, but I do understand why he was frustrated with the situation that he was put in. And we can't deny that Seth Jones played a big impact for the Panthers to help them win a second consecutive Stanley Cup. Top pairing role, well over 23 minutes per game, I believe it was, scored in the clinching Stanley Cup winning game. It was a real good trade for the Florida Panthers to get what they wanted. However, it has turned into a spectacular deal for the Blackhawks, considering the level that Spencer Knight has played at as just a 24-year-old goaltender in his first real season as a number one starter in this league. Do think it was a good trade for both sides, but the value that the Blackhawks, that Kyle Davidson got out of it, and this guy is just an absolute value hunter, I think was absolutely spectacular. But with the Panthers, prior to them picking up a win last night in Los Angeles, believe it or not, the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs were in last place in the Eastern Conference standings, which the Eastern Conference has been very competitive from top to bottom to start off this year. They are no longer in last place with that win last night. They're now 7-6-1 through their opening 15 games. But that still has them currently sitting 5th out of 10 teams in the Eastern Conference wildcard standings. And considering, Alexander Barkov is out for the remainder of the year, Matthew Tkachuk, they're still it's kind of up in the air in terms of what his timetable is going to be to return. You can't help but wonder what type of pick this could turn out to be for the Blackhawks. And as of right now, which again, I know it's extremely early, the Panthers have only played 14 games, but this would be the 12th overall pick in the 2026 NHL draft. And it would actually improve up to the 11th because the Ottawa Senators are forfeiting their draft pick this year and they're one spot ahead of Florida currently. So that just kind of shows you where this pick is staying right now and how Florida hasn't gotten off to the best of starts here in their quest for a third Stanley Cup championship in a row. Now, speaking honestly, do I really think the Panthers are going to stay at this level for the remainder of the year? No. I do still think they're talented enough to find a way to squeak into the postseason, which is probably their goal. They're aware of their long-term injuries that's hindering this team right now, but they know if they get in, they got an opportunity, and that's really all that matters in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I really, obviously they'd want to go in have home ice if possible and win their division, but I still think they know they like their chances if they get in as a wild card team. And I do feel like that's probably, third in their division in a wild card spot is where the Panthers are at least trending towards. Anything can obviously happen over the final, 65, 66 games or whatever it may be. And the Panthers are super talented still, even without those two big guns with Sam Reinhart, Sam Bennett, who hasn't gotten off to the best start of the season, although it is the regular season and he's most known for his playoff performances. They got Carter Verhaeghe, they got Brad Marchand, Aaron Ekblad, Seth Jones on the back end, Sergei Bobrovsky in between the pipes. Like, I really don't think the Florida Panthers are going to miss the Stanley Cup playoffs. However, I do feel like, 16 teams qualify for the postseason. This could potentially be somewhere between number 16 and number 20 for the Blackhawks, a la the Sacha Boisvert pick, the Oliver Moore pick that they received from the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years ago. And I just think that was, from what we originally expected trading with, at the time, the one-time defending Stanley Cup champion, seeing them go and win it again, we were probably expecting this pick to be in the late 20s, maybe even right around number 30. But it looks like it has an opportunity to be a lot earlier than that. And the Blackhawks, of course, still own their own 2026 first-round selection, which means there's going to be even more high-level prospects joining this already stacked prospect pool. Long ways to go, of course, Blackhawks fans, but definitely something to keep an eye on over these next couple of months if the Florida Panthers are able to raise their game. What's going to be happening with Matthew Tkachuk, because it matters for the Blackhawks' future as they hold the Panthers' unprotected 2026 first-round selection. All right, there is a quick breakdown on the Florida Panthers' kind of shaky start to the 25-26 campaign. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, before I close things out, do want to get into an update on a couple of Blackhawks prospects. But first, I got to talk to you all about another one of today's sponsors, which is FanDuel. The NFL season is now well past the midway point, but FanDuel is still making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. And what I personally love about FanDuel is that it's super quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. With player props, same-game parlays, and now more ways than ever to get in on the action, are you ready to play? All you got to do is check out FanDuel.com or go and download the FanDuel Sportsbook app in order to get started. Again, that's the FanDuel Sportsbook app, or go and check out FanDuel.com now to get $300 worth of bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Segment 3, as we are now into November, not only does that mean we're starting to creep towards the 2026 Winter Olympics, but also we're just over a month removed from the World Junior Championship, which always starts up right around Christmas. And with that starting to creep up as well, there have been some recent tune-up games, as we saw yesterday. There's also been some roster projections getting dropped over these last couple of weeks for all the respective countries. And as far as Blackhawks prospects go, looks like there's going to be another at least couple performing in the World Juniors this year. First and foremost, got to start with Anton Frondell. I just talked about the tune-up games that are going on. Sweden had a tune-up game yesterday against Slovakia, I believe it was. Anton Frondell was centering Sweden's top line as a 18-year-old on the U20 roster, which I think is super impressive and just goes to show the talent that this kid possesses. And Frondell, boy, oh boy, he had two absolute howitzers that beat the Slovakian netminder for a pair of goals. The second one was an absolutely nasty shot, glove high from the right dot. And that's what we've seen from Frondell everywhere he's played so far this season. For Djurgården in the SHL, where he's had a lot of different roles, second line center, fourth line winger, third line center. He's been kind of used all over the place, but it hasn't slowed him down whatsoever. 8 goals and 4 assists for 12 points for Frondell in his opening 17 SHL games, and had quite the showing yesterday for Team Sweden. Figure he's going to be a very big part of their roster at this year's WJC. Power play, penalty kill, with his size and skill. Yeah, he's going to be doing it all for the Swedes. And then I also wanted to be sure to mention that Stephen Ellis wrote up his Team Canada roster projection. I don't believe there's going to be any Blackhawks prospects playing for the USA this year, which is a little bit unfortunate. That's something I've really enjoyed these last few seasons with Oliver Moore and Frankie Nazar, and watching the American team get built up and become a little bit of a wagon here for the WJC. But there could be 3 Blackhawks prospects. 3 of them are contending for roster spots on Team Canada this year. The lines that Stephen Ellis mentioned, all 3 of these players are forwards. The lines that Stephen Ellis went through in his Team Canada roster projection, boy, is the Canadian roster stacked. Gavin McKenna, Berkeley Catton, who I forget is still eligible to play in this thing, along with Porter Martone, then Liam Greentree, Michael Hage, and Braden Coots. Ellis had as his second line, Brady Martin, Caleb Dennoyer, and Justin Cabinot as the third line, and then Cole Baudouin, Jet Luchenko, and Tej Aginla rounding things out on the fourth line. The 2 extras that Stephen Ellis had on his roster projection was Jake O'Brien from the Brantford Bulldogs, of course, and then Sacha Boisvert, Blackhawks prospect, 18th overall pick in 2024. Hasn't been as dominant of a start for him at Boston University as I was hoping for. He's been a little banged up and dealing with some injuries early on, but I do still think as a veteran older skatesman from the 2024 draft class, and with Sasha's size and his well-rounded nature, I think he should be in the bottom 6, or at least on the roster for Team Canada in this WJC. And then as far as players who are pushing for roster spots, 2 other Blackhawks prospects were listed there by Stephen Ellis, and Johnny Mustard, who's been excellent so far as a sophomore with Providence, and then Marek Vanacker, who's the current leading goal scorer in all of the OHL right now, along with Jake O'Brien in Brantford. I think Vanacker is probably the one of the 2 who has the leg up between him and Johnny Mustard, just because Vanacker plays a little bit of a power forward type of style and has a pretty good 2-way game. I feel like as a bottom 6 insertion, he's probably the one who would fare a little better in that spot. But Johnny Mustard, not only has he been scoring goals for Providence, he's been playing on the penalty kill, using his speed to make an impact in 2-way play. But I do still think Marek Vanacker has the leg up over him, although admittedly, I think it's going to be very tough for either of those 2 guys to wind up on the Canadiens roster. Last but certainly not least, I do believe Václav Nestrasil is going to be playing for Czechia. I remember him playing in 5 Nations tournament games for Czechia earlier on this fall. So I believe he's going to be playing for Czechia, obviously as a first-round selection for the Blackhawks, 18 years old, probably one of the higher-end players that I think would be on that roster. So I believe I'm correct in assuming that Václav Nestrasil is going to be taking part in this tournament as well. But we know Anton Frondell is going to be there for Sweden. I would really love to see Sacha Boisvert scrap his way onto the team for Canada, and I think we're going to be seeing Nestrasil play for the Czechs as well. So hopefully at least 3 Blackhawks prospects taking part in the World Junior Championship next month, which is always one of the most exciting times of the year, watching all of these high-level prospects face off against one another for their respective countries. That's going to take care of today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, everyone. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and that you're also following Locked On Blackhawks for free wherever you may be listening to your podcast. That way, you don't miss any of the latest episodes as soon as they become available. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. If you want to follow me on X, you can do so at Jack Bushman2, but make sure to follow my strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey so you don't miss any of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. Until the next episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekends. Go Hawks. Let's go and make it 2-2-1 through 5 games on this road trip, and I'll see you on the next episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.